Not sure who I am, not sure who I wanna be. All this shit's a scam, I don't wanna be me. This ain't what I want, this is everything I need. No, I don't belong, can't contain my jealousy. Stop looking at yourself, you're caught up in my spell. No hope, can't you tell this ain't no wishing well? Stop, I can't agree with you, I can't believe this feeling's jealousy. Tell me who was I born to be? What's wrong with me? My jealousy.
This is one of my new least favorite levels in the game. It's also my new hardest. This is harder than Crimson Planet. So my total of attempts was 4,432 attempts, which for Brutal is absolutely disappointing. I wasn't expecting this level to take me very long, but it ended up absolutely kicking my ass. This is single-handedly the most inconsistent level I've ever played. I absolutely couldn't stand a second of playing this, and I'm glad I never have to play this piece of shit ever again. Brutal by Tshack. I already added a notice at the beginning of this video, but I want to make it abundantly clear that I beat Brutal before I beat Terminal Rampancy. I needed to beat yet another 99th Extreme Demon because the Tower XXII got demoted to Insane Demon for a third time. So the main reason why I beat this is because I wanted to get my Extreme Demon count back up to 99 Extremes, and I wanted to beat something quickly so I could get back to Terminal Rampancy as soon as I could, because I had gotten 91% on Terminal the same day that the Tower XXII got demoted for its third time. Now, a lot of players around my skill level, both friends and acquaintances alike, beat this level in about an hour and only a few hundred attempts. They were calling it a free Extreme Demon, and they told me that it probably wasn't going to take me more than an hour or two to beat. However, they are all wrong, brought by the higher-ups at Big AREDL to make us think that Brutal isn't a main list Extreme Demon. All jokes aside though, I struggled with this level way more than I ever expected to. What theoretically should have taken me about an hour to beat ended up taking me over 2 days to beat. This level was, and still is, the most inconsistent level I have ever played. And I think the main reason for that is simply because this is one of the most anti-me levels of all time. But I'm gonna get into that in a bit. For now, let's just get into the gameplay. Now, because this level is so short, I'm only going to be dividing it into two sections, those being the pre-drop, or 0 to 39%, and the drop, 39 to 100%. And I'll be going front to back, starting with the pre-drop. To be honest, I really don't have much to say about 0 to 39% on this level. I didn't really like it. I found it pretty annoying for the most part, honestly. But it was the one part of the level that was even semi-consistent from 0%. I guess if I really had to say something about this section, I thought that the first wave was kind of annoying because I died to it a lot for some reason. I just don't have a lot to say about this part overall. It's like a 4 out of 10 part. It's whatever and completely forgettable as compared to 39 to 100%, which I'm going to be getting into now. This is where basically all of my issues with this level lie. As I mentioned at the beginning of this review, this level is incredibly anti-me. The closest level I can relate this to is actually Wazaretta. Now, Brutal isn't necessarily a click sync Extreme Demon, but the way that the gameplay flows, as well as the incredibly precise transitions found in the drop sections, reminded me a lot of Wazaretta. And as some of you may remember, I'm not a fan of Wazaretta, so unfortunately, I really wasn't a fan of this drop section either. This is probably a good time to mention that whenever I initially beat this level, I hated it. I call it close to my least favorite level in the game whenever I first beat this level. However, I will say that I didn't feel like my opinion on Brutal was fair given the circumstances of my completion. I felt like I had to rush through Brutal so I could get back to Terminal Rampancy as fast as possible, and when this level took me way longer than I expected it to, it caused me to get incredibly frustrated with the level, which really isn't Brutal's fault in any way. So, sometime after I beat Brutal, I began to play the level again here and there just to give the level a more fair chance. I never ended up rebeating it, and I'll get into why in a second, but I did get several attempts back to the 80s after my initial completion, and I will say that my opinion on Brutal has changed, albeit not drastically. I guess I can talk about the first half of the drop now, as by default, this is my favorite part of the level. One thing I can say about Brutal's gameplay is that damn, it is some kind of satisfying. Pulling off each wave or fast click pattern never failed to give me an intense sense of satisfaction anywhere from 45 to 68%. And when I was playing Brutal on my own without the expectations of beating the level, I enjoyed this section quite a lot. Once I figured out the nuance of each individual click, the part became pretty consistent, to the point where it wasn't frustrating for me to play anymore. There were still a few clicks here and there that I found to be pretty dumb, but overall, This section was pretty cool. It was chill. I liked it. Now, thanks to my opinion on this section flipping, my opinion on Brutal as a whole isn't nearly as harsh as it used to be. However, it still isn't great, and the main reason for this is 68 to 100%. I cannot stand the last 30% of this level, man. I'll go ahead and get 68 to 80% out of the way, as I really don't have too much to say about it. I mainly saw this section as a buffer part between 45 to 68% and the ending, or 80 to 100%. I never liked playing this part because it all felt incredibly awkward. Most of the inputs felt like they needed to be hit as early as physically possible. And if you were even slightly late on one of those inputs, you would end up dying 2 or 3 clicks later. I'm really not a fan of delayed deaths, so that was something that was really frustrating for me. I also really didn't like the wave at the end of this part, mainly because the structuring around the wave only becomes visible as your way traverses through the corridor. I struggle enough to see the game as is, so the limited visibility of this wave, albeit probably not a massive issue for other people, did cause me to die to the wave quite a lot. Overall, I just didn't like 68 to 80%. It was awkward and janky and it just was not enjoyable, but it wasn't my least favorite part of the level because that honor goes to the last 20% of this level. This might be the most inconsistent part in any level I've ever played, and it's the main reason why I hated playing Brutal. No matter how much practice I put into this level or how many 39 to 100% runs I did, I could never get a lick of consistency with this part. I would try to hone in and nitpick each specific section of this part to try to tell you what made it so inconsistent, but I can't because all of it was inconsistent. I guess I can go through my deaths as to try to give an idea as to why I hated this ending so much. Starting off with the ship, I had 3 deaths to the ship at the end of this level, mainly due to the transition into the ship being pretty setup based, meaning that you had to adjust your flying every attempt that you got to that ship corridor, which the corridor itself also just isn't easy, so it was incredibly frustrating. I had 14 deaths at the wave, which was just utterly abhorrent. My main issue with this wave is that at 4 times speed, I really couldn't see anything in it. That's mainly because the background, the foreground, the decoration, and the structures are all very similar colors, so it caused it to all mesh together in my vision. And the wave itself is also just structured in a really weird way, which makes the core wave gameplay really inconsistent in nature, which of course didn't help with the fact that I already couldn't see anything in the wave to begin with. So yeah, I just really didn't like this wave. And finally, I had 2 deaths at 91% because of course I did. The ending of this level feels like a freaking roulette. I really don't have anything else to say about the last part of the level other than it's dumb, and in my opinion, it's way too inconsistent to put at the very end of your extreme demon. Totaling up those deaths, I had a grand total of 19 deaths past 80% on this level, which is pretty bad. I got really damn unlucky with this level, and that's not even including the fact that I died to the drop 177 times. So yeah, all in all, this was a pretty pitiful performance on my part. Again, this level is basically everything I'm bad at in Geometry Dash, so of course I was gonna struggle with it. Is it a skill issue? Absolutely. But my skill with GD lies in other skill sets, as I've steamrolled levels that are significantly harder than Brutal in less than half the attempts, so I'm choosing not to let this experience bother me too much. Now, as for difficulty, I personally found this to be a little harder than Crimson Planet, not by a massive margin or anything, and it's definitely significantly easier than Terminal Rampancy, but in my opinion, it's probably around Hard Machine in difficulty. Anyways, that'll be it for Brutal. As of right now, I'm not picking up any big projects as I'm currently wrapping up the last week of my internship and I'm also leaving for a little vacation next week. But after I get back from that vacation, I'm planning on adding some levels to my top 10. And soon after that, I'm planning on starting Hard Machine as a new second hardest, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But yeah, that'll be it from me. Have a good one, everyone.